All right, so this is Laura, aka the Sound Sommelier, here with Christie Z. Christie, what's your earliest memory of hip hop?
Oh, I remember people singing Rapper's Delight must have been in grade school, but my grade school went to 8th grade, so I don't even know when. So anyway, yeah, all my girlfriends are trying to do, Rapper's Delight. That's the earliest memory I can think of.
Right. What are some of the earliest records you recall hearing as a child?
Oh, as a child, one of my favorite albums.
In the neighborhood. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the Coasters' Greatest Hits is one of my favorite all-time albums from childhood till today.
Nice.
So that was probably the one that I don't know. And it was interesting because then whenever hip hop came about, you eventually heard people sampling the Coasters. So it all just made sense. And I always liked the breaks from songs. I didn't know what it was called. And suddenly there's a genre where all the breaks are together. Right. What could be better?
Were you able to pick, like, I still am pretty bad at picking up samples, but because of that, like when you first heard a song that sampled the Coasters, were you able to be like, oh, hey.
Yeah. That's what I miss about, I'm turning down my volume. That's what I miss about hip hop today is I find that maybe a lot of artists can't afford the samples.
Right.
And so it's not sample based hip hop as much anymore. And that's what I really miss. I miss the connection to the 60s and 70s and earlier of music.
Yeah, I hear that. Was there an active scene when you were growing up in Pittsburgh, or did you have to travel to nearby cities for shows?
Well, I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, exactly an hour from Pittsburgh. And then what Morgantown, West Virginia was the other way. And so I grew up in a small town, and my girlfriend and I loved whatever was coming out in hip hop. Like we would stay up late and listen to DJ Sly Jock on WAMO. We would tape his, nightly, set and play it all week, because it was only on Sunday nights. Mm-hmm. And so that was like our only access to like new information outside of like a friend who might have a mixtape from their cousin in California or whatever. And God forbid if someone had a mixtape like that, I was so jealous till I could get it. It was painful. But yeah, we would we couldn't even drive yet. So we would beg our moms to drive us to the Uniontown Mall so we could go to National Record Mart and shop for 12 inches. Or so we could see b-boys at the mall, because sometimes there'd be like b-boy shows. Mm-hmm. So we did have to work hard to get hip hop. I think that's experience of a lot of people in places where there wasn't a lot of access.
Right, and that's how you knew that they had a like legit love of it, because they worked so hard to get it.
Yeah, he worked so hard to know things, and there was no rap magazines or even pictures of rappers were few and far between. So when I got to New York and people would get mad if I didn't recognize them while I was kicking them off the stage. Like, you don't know who I am, and I just don't have like the pinup calendar of Wild Style All-Stars, like
you're also probably like, well, you don't know who I am.
I don't know. And and then meanwhile, it's like 30 years later, there's no way I'm gonna know.
Right.
So it's interesting. But it was like a faceless kind of thing, unless you got the album cover or something.
Right. Was there, speaking of your move to New York, was there a series of events that led to you moving? And what did you move in 96? Do I have that right?
Yeah, 96 in the summer. And I was working in Pittsburgh with juvenile delinquent girls. And it was really enjoyable, but I guess it was just time to move on. And I felt like I did everything I could in Pittsburgh that I wanted to do. I threw parties, I worked in mental health, I got my degrees. And we're just ready to move on. But the year before, DJ Swamp, his friends, and I went to a Rocksteady anniversary. So 95 Rocksteady in New York City. And I never wanted to go to New York City unless it was like a really special, great time, like not just some oh, let's take a trip, and then you go visiting people's friends and sightsee.
Right.
So this was Rocksteady anniversary, and it was huge, and it was so influential too, because yeah, that was a park jam on the Upper West Side in what's now called Happy Warrior Playground.
Oh.
But yeah, it was called Rocksteady Park, you know, and yeah, and it was amazing. Like they just had it set up so well. And I saw Mixmaster Mike, I saw the Beastie Boys hanging out. I saw the one guy from New York Undercover. Like there were just like so many people all in one place. It was crazy.
What was the first event you remember attending after you moved to New York?
I don't know. I know that there was the Zulu anniversary coming up in November, and I didn't really have many friends in New York City, and I was I was just determined to go. I was like, I didn't move here to miss this kind of stuff. Right. And so I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know Harlem. And I just like trekked my way up there, like determined to get in and do this. And it ended up being a good thing. It was a successful endeavor.
Nice. How soon after did you meet Tools of War co-founder Popmaster Fable?
I met him at the Zulu anniversary.
Oh.
We'd seen each other at the Rocksteady anniversary earlier that summer, but we didn't ever talk or anything like that. We just remember what we looked like. And yeah, we just hit it off and started talking. And that's how I met him.
Nice. What was one of the most important history lessons he taught you about hip hop culture?
There's so many things. There's so many New York things too, like specific to New York that don't, like lessons that don't necessarily apply in other cities where it's just weird. Like one time someone gave me a shirt, another dancer, and I was like, look, so-and-so gave me a shirt. He was like, you don't wear another dude's shirt. I'm like, oh. It was so funny. It didn't even occur to me because you're just like,
yeah, why not?
You're a fangirl, you know?
Yeah.
But that's not the most important one. He would tell me about the park jams and the block parties. And, he's very articulately, like he's just so sharp with his words, let's say. And he described them so well that I'd almost cry, like that I couldn't believe I missed them. And so that always stuck with me because I never really got to go to one. And so when the opportunity arose for us to throw them, that was huge. And so I said, I could only go off of what he said happened, but then I added my own flavor to it, which some people might not have liked, because it was kind of like the clean version of a park jam, So, but yeah. That the park jam history was very useful. And yeah, and I just got so much history from him, met so many pioneers and legends through him. It was great, just a great community to come into New York and meet.
Right, great connection. Speaking of your park jams, your events have always been all ages, no drugs, no alcohol, no profanity, no racial slurs, offensive language, etc. Do you feel this was a way to ensure you were bringing together authentic hip hop heads who were only interested in the music and creating a community vibe?
Well, yeah, but still the other people came anyway and turned it into, a happy hour grown and sexy event.
Right.
So that was kind of frustrating because that's not what I was about, or that's what we weren't trying to do that. So that was weird. We were constantly trying to fight illegal alcohol salesmen to get out of the park of our area. And, and they basically counted on our jams to make a good amount of money. And then meanwhile, we're like struggling, like trying to just get money together to buy a park permit or a sound permit. Right. And here's people walking away with wads of cash off of alcohol sales at our jams. Occasionally things would slip through profanity wise or, whatever. But I think in general, it stayed pretty clean. And a lot of people said they liked our jams because they felt that they could bring their children or their grandchildren or nieces and nephews there without worrying about too much stuff.
That's a plus.
Yeah.
When did you first develop an interest in Islam and its values?
I was interested in it ever since you heard about it within hip hop, within rappers like Poor Righteous Teachers, Brand Nubian, Public Enemy. Like I just didn't know enough about Islam. And the people that were covered, I had no idea what they were. All I knew was Nation of Islam or Five Percenters, and I didn't even know the difference between them.
Right.
And then I didn't know what a Sunni Muslim or a Shiite was. So so we would hear like assalamu alaikum, walaikum assalam, and different things in lyrics and be curious. And then but I thought you had to be Black to be Muslim because of everything that I just got. I never met anybody that would tell me anything.
Right.
So it wasn't until I got to New York and I saw Arabic stuff on Fable's wall. And I asked him about it. And he said he was Muslim. And I was like, oh, I thought you had to be Black. He said no. And that's when I found like more the truth about some things.
Well, I'm impressed that you pursued it.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people probably heard those lyrics and were interested in them, but really didn't do anything with it. So
yeah, I mean, I was interested in what they were about because even if I didn't join the Nation of Islam or other, you know, like I didn't, even if I didn't join them, which I don't know, you know, let me start over on that one. I don't know if I could have gotten down with the Nation of Islam or the Five Percenters, you know, considering some aspects of myself.
Right.
But I always thought it was like they were like about some righteous stuff and they were had different higher standards.
Mhm.
And I never really took it negatively, even if there was anti-white stuff. I'm like, oh, they're talking about other white people. They're not talking about me. I'm not a racist. And so, yeah, so I just was curious and interested in who these, you know, righteous, upstanding dudes, and I didn't really see any women at that point, but who they were.
Nice. Simple as that. Tools of War grassroots hip hop was formed in the late 90s to help bridge the gap between hip hop's legendary past and mainstream present. What would you say was its #1 priority then? How has it changed?
Well, mostly we just wanted to inform, like really, like, okay, so Fable started it to sell merchandise, and Tools of War stands for all the things you use when you're battling, including your mouth, your mic, your legs, your arms, your needles for, you know, your turntables, all that. So he was selling merchandise. And then I used to get so mad because there would be events in New York and no one would tell anybody about them. And then I would find out that Force MDs were at SOBs the night before, and everybody will talk about how great the show was, but they won't have told you. They could have been on the phone with you that day and they will not have mentioned that they were going to go to that show. Mm-hmm. And so nobody felt any kind of obligation to help spread the word. And so I missed a lot of shows. Right. And so I just started making my own little, you know, I had a little email list and I would just send out, you know, my picks, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, so it was Tools of War can have many facets at any given time, including the newsletter, including merchandise, including park jams, you know, whatever we're into could be Tools of War.
Nice. That's all encompassing.
Yeah.
How did you land your first job at DMC in 1998?
Oh, so since I moved here, when I moved to New York, I worked in like different gyms until I got a mental health job in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. And that was with people with HIV and full-blown AIDS, and I had to go visit them and do this. So I had a whole year, like I was at least committed to a whole year of that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was a great job, but it was also often dangerous. You know what I mean? Like you're dealing with schizophrenics, you're dealing with schizophrenics who might be smoking crack, who aren't taking their medicines, like whatever it is. There's a lot of stuff that could go down. I think hip hop is way safer than the field of psychology. So Tony Prince was living in New York City. He's the founder of DMC, one of the founders, him and his wife. So he was living in New York City, and I don't know, DJ Swamp had introduced me to what DMC was. And so I followed him like on his, you know, entering for the first time ever DMC and then winning all the way to the US. Like it's a very rare thing for someone to just come out of nowhere and win. And so that's my good friend, because I lived in Pittsburgh, he lived in Cleveland, and he, you know, he put me on to a lot of stuff too. So he said Tony Prince was in town. If I wanted to meet him, he would introduce me, and maybe I could, you know, I don't know if that was our idea, was to take over the DMC battles or just work there. So I had dinner with Tony. He put me, he offered me a part-time job, so I would go in after my mental health job and and call stores and see if they needed anything. And I increased sales so much. Like I would just take notes, like here's what they want, and then just leave the office. And yeah, a lot of people, you know, I just increased sales a lot, to the point where within a couple months he put me on full time at DMC, and kind of threw in the DMC battles, because I don't think the other person who was doing them really was into it. You know what I mean? Like maybe you have to do it because you're there, you know, but I really was passionate about it. So it worked out great. And that's when we expanded the DMCs from, instead of East Coast and West Coast, we took, I don't know if the first year we did 8. Eventually, like one year I did like 17 battles in all.
I read that.
And we traveled everywhere. Yeah, it was crazy. But it was great too, because it was 98, 99, 2000, which are some of the hypest years for turntablism. And so I don't know that I necessarily like I tried to help, but I think I just came along at a really good time to catch it while it was bubbling.
Right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So you worked there until 2000, when you took some years off to organize battles on your own, including teaming up with Jazzy J to launch the King Queen of Beat producer battle, as well as created a DJ battle for the 2002 Zulu anniversary. What aspects of your time with DMC did you bring to these events?
Well, I mean, I'm just really big on being organized, and I'm making sure DJs feel right, and just so you're not standing around waiting for like things. And you know, there's just so many things you go to a show and you don't like. Right. So even to this day, I think of how I can improve a show or what I could do different depending on blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so basically from DMC, you know, I had connections and everything like that, but I also had, you know, organized skills. And so I not only did all those things you're talking about, but I helped the Allies throw their all-star beatdown battles, Rock Raiders Gong DJ battle, the Vinyl Combat battle that Shore, Rain, and Serato got together to throw. Like just so many things. I became the go-to person for DJ battles. So yeah, that was great. And so I could just make up battles and throw them. And still can, really. There's way more battles I'd like to throw with or without DMC, like, you know, whatever they want to do. If they don't want to add a new category, I could always do something on the side when I'm not for them.
Nice.
Yeah, there's just so much exciting stuff that can happen.
I don't see it going anywhere either. In 2008, you rejoined DMC to coordinate the DMC American Battleground and run its branch in the US. What did it mean for you to be part of organizing the 99 DMC World Finals the first time it took place in the US?
Well, you know, 2008, I started, I came back to DMC and have been doing it ever since. But this time I was not an employee with an office or a salary. But I was my own boss to a degree. Like I would still check with DMC World in London to make sure everything I was doing was like, you know, according to their standards. But in general, I had a lot more freedom to do what I wanted. In 99, that was amazing because to this day, DMC World has never been in the US again.
Right.
And Tony Prince was sharp. He noticed, he saw things were bubbling. He saw we were having sellout crowds. And he was like, all right, next year, New York City. And so, yeah, 99 Hammerstein Ballroom, 2 nights in a row with with one of my favorite, I guess, event producers, you might say, is Maddie Silver. And he's just amazing. And so he was involved in 98 DFCUS finals and 99 Worlds. Like anything we did in New York was with him between 98 and 2000. And he just has such great connections. Like there was I think it was in Rolling Stone, and it was a picture of him with Perry Farrell about selling out Madison Square Garden. And they said, who's a rock star? And I was pretty sure it was Matt, not Perry. So yeah, I just completely, like anytime Maddie wants to do something, I'm down. And we actually did, Fable and I threw the first B-boy battle at Lollapalooza.
Oh, wow.
Through Maddie. He flew us out to Chicago, and he had Adidas sponsor, and we had it. It's, just one of those cool opportunities that you get from doing your work well, and other people who, value good organization and reliability recognize that, and then you get to do more work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't talk about that too much, but yeah. Yeah. And we also did a B-boy battle with him, a team, I think it was a crew battle at Hammerstein Ballroom one year with Maddie. Yeah, I think he was having a rave and he wanted us to throw some stuff. So we had a good time. Not with rave music.
How would you define champion sound to someone who has never been to a battle?
It's so hard to say. You mean like when I hear a champion? Oh man, it's just, you just feel it. It's authentic. The sound is clean and clear. And it could be anybody. Like one time I was in the Bronx at a party on Webster Avenue and I didn't really, I was just I background listen all the time, but I background listen to a DJ and it just didn't really, appeal to me, whatever he was playing. And then the sound just changed. And I was like, oh man, whoever this is, I didn't know who was DJing. I was like, whoever this is on point. It was Grand Wizard Theodore, like I should have known. But immediately as he took over the wheels, I understood that this was something different. Like this was not the caliber, this was a whole different caliber of DJ. And it's just that, I guess if you know it, you feel it in your heart. I feel like I don't know who can't recognize authenticity. I don't know if that's possible to not recognize it. Like, I don't know. It's something to think about, but I just feel like it in your heart. Like, oh, it's so, you feel it.
That's how you know you're in the right job. So you talked a little bit about the newsletter earlier. Your Tools of War newsletter became known as essential reading for hip hop heads who wanted to be in the know about events happening across the globe. How much work went into putting these together on a weekly basis? Did they come out weekly? Did I have that right?
It was tedious and thankless. But one thing, my girlfriend Santina, who was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, said she went to some classes in I want to say Harvard for something, and the teacher made it mandatory that they subscribe to my newsletter.
Oh, wow.
I don't know who the teacher was, but Santina was just so happy that that I was getting. So I had no idea. They never told me that their class had to do that. So as I would go through emails or websites and stuff, I would just cut and paste different things to save for later. But then sometimes I would miss good events because I was busy making the newsletter so that nobody else missed good events. So like I can think of a lot of times in the summer where I should have just went out to Central Park and saw the show that I was including in my newsletter.
Right.
And then it just got weird. Like people would just send me like I would ask for people to send it to me, like who, what, when, where, how much, age limit, like be thorough, because I don't want to send someone to a place where they can't get in, right, or the event is canceled now or anything. And it's just being responsible, especially when you're sending people into different places that they're not, when they're visiting New York.
Right.
And and hip hop is a very unpredictable thing.
Mhm.
So promoters just started getting lazy, and they wouldn't send me the listings in the format, even though I was doing it for free and sending it across the world. It just got weird. They're like, well, I'll send you a flyer. And I'm like, I'm not typing off your flyer. And it just
I'm
got,
trying to help you promote.
that's what I'm saying. And I don't understand it. If someone said, I will do your listing, and I had to just give them a tiny paragraph of text that wasn't in all caps as well, because
Mhm.
there was a time in hip hop where everything had to be in all caps for some reason.
Everybody's yelling.
Oh, so bad. So yeah, so eventually I just had to quit doing the newsletter because I just was so resentful to people I actually normally liked, because I couldn't believe, I just couldn't believe how unappreciative they were,
Right.
And yeah, and it would be very rare that they would think to help me promote anything I was doing. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't really reciprocated.
Right.
It was really weird. And then sometimes we would get into fights with people like, well, you never list my event in your newsletter. And then I would send them like the monthly listing of 12 different months back to back, like screenshotting them. Like, what are you talking about? Then you find out that they didn't even read your newsletter. They just said that. Like, it's bizarre. I even listed people I didn't like, but they were throwing a good event. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I don't like this dude, but he does have a good event.
Yeah, like
I would
you were
list
being petty, but they were.
So I just had to stop. And yeah, and people still wish they could get it, but no. But now since promoters don't feel like they need to promote, and they think everybody knows where every venue is, and they don't have to give you any directions or anything,
Mhm.
they're on their own. Because I don't care if I put too much information on a flyer or on a post on social media, but my information is going to be thorough, because I want you to get there and I want you to pay to get in.
Yeah.
That there's a chance I might get more people that want to pay to get in if they actually know how to get there.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. I mean,
It's a whole new concept.
who would have thought?
I know.
Christy, what's one of your favorite memories of the legendary DJ Rock Rada?
I don't know. I think the first time he called me to help him with his battle, I couldn't believe Rock Raider was calling me to help him. And then we ended up being great friends after that. And then after he passed, like there was so many times that I just wanted to call him and tell him something like some DJ annoyed me or what he did, you know what I mean? Like you share confidences, like, oh, you don't like that guy either? Oh, okay, I didn't know it. I thought it was just me, So yeah, and I remember I watched him. He's an interesting guy because he was so soft spoken, but then when he would get angry, he would just get like a really deep voice and yell. And we were backstage organizing something for him. Maybe it was a gong battle or an executioner's reunion. And someone came in saying something, and Raider just got all like, "Who is you?" And I was like, "Oh, whoever that was." He just, I think he kept it moving.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. Like I don't know why it is with. I think it's in New York City more than any other place I've seen. Is men seem to test each other in hip hop and see how far they can go.
Mhm.
And it's not just testing each other, test me, test anybody,
Mhm.
And I used to think, I still don't have it all figured out, because sometimes I'll be like, oh, they're just being stupid with me because I'm a woman or whatever. And then Fable said one time for me to consider, he's like, if they think you're soft, they're going to try it, whatever it is they want.
Mhm.
I was like, and I am. I don't punch anybody in the face. Like, it's one of my downsides. But yeah, it's ridiculous that you have to be tested for people to decide they like you or not. And then by the time they decide, the people that have made you hate them they decide that they like you now and they respect your game.
Right.
You can't stand them and you think they're shady, you can't trust them. Like, that's not what humans should do to each other.
Mhm.
So that's a phenomenon. And then when I saw people try to test Fable, and that's just crazy, so it's just some weird man thing. It's all I can figure is why. I don't know. I should do a psychological research on that.
I'd read it. That might be just a great mystery.
Yeah.
How did you become part of the casting department for the documentary film Scratch, which had its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival nearly 20 years ago?
They Brad Blondheim, who was producer, came to DMC's office and was talking. And I'm always skeptical, especially skeptical of so-called hip hop documentaries and anybody wants to throw one. And but the way he laid this out and who Doug Prey was,
Mhm.
is huge. Like, he had done American Gangster, he did Infamy later, and just different things. Wait, not American Gangster, was it American Pimp? I think he did that one. Anyway, he did some major documentaries. He did one on the Seattle grunge scene.
Mhm.
And so he had a name already and he wanted to do this. And then I was like, well, if you are going to do it, then you need to include these people. And pretty much that's how I ended up being that, just because I couldn't, I hate to say culturally or historically or what, but you can't just sit back and say, well, until you give me money, I'm not going to connect you with Grand Wizard Theodore or Steve
Right.
D or the people that need to be in this documentary.
Right.
And so pretty much everybody I suggested was interviewed. So I didn't expect to be interviewed myself,
Mhm.
but I definitely tried to steer them clear of, the lion ears, and keep them in touch with the who's who on the deeper level, like not just your surface people. And then there was pioneers that didn't want to be in the documentary because they said they were working on their own.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so it wasn't like who they missed or, who got in. It was, it was interesting. I was happy to be involved in it. And I'm still cool with Doug Prey and Brad Blondheim now. And they're in New York, probably in my storage, but Doug Prey sent me all his research VHSs.
Oh, wow.
From the movie, because he didn't want to throw them away or give them to anybody that didn't appreciate them. So I have like all kind. I don't who even knows what I have in that box, because I didn't even get to look at it yet.
You should think about donating that to the Cornell Hip Hop Collection.
Yeah. Well, after I see what's in there,
Yeah.
I gotta get. But I'm good friends with the Cornell Hip Hop Collection archive people like Catherine and Ben. So yeah,
I just interviewed Ben a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Mhm.
And they're real too, yeah, they're not putting on the lion ears either, which is good. That's my biggest thing is you have to do enough research to not get tricked by someone who wants you to believe they're a pioneer or a legend, while meanwhile they're just rewriting history.
Right.
That happened all the time at the park jams. They would come up and it was so frustrating. Because to look as if might just be as good as.
Mhm.
So and that goes back to the testing and the different hustles that people have, especially in New York. I've encountered it a little bit in other places, but not so much as New York. But yeah, that like sometimes a person that you can't stand, that you think is fraudulent, will just come up and try to shake your hand in public.
Right.
So other people can, it's almost like you're co-signing.
Mhm.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
And then there's times I've refused to shake hands because of that,
Well, yeah.
No co-sign.
At least you can see through it though.
Yeah. And I am really respectful, because like if you said you were somebody, then I don't want to say you're not. I don't know. I wasn't there back in the days, but I want to be careful, and I want to ask, the other legends and pioneers if that person is within their circles, or what is their contribution. I don't know every pioneer or legend from every section of the Bronx or Mount Vernon or wherever, you know what I mean? And especially Queens and Brooklyn are a whole different, area that I'm not super familiar with. So I always try to be respectful, but it's just strange. Like one guy said, yeah, we should sit down and, research our history. And I was like, why? Like, why do I have to be there? And it was basically so they could get on at a park jam. But I wasn't interested in having that either. Like, we did Pioneers and Legends only at Crotona Park in the Bronx. And, maybe if you were a good DJ, you could get in on Harlem Hop in June in Harlem. That was a little bit more open formatish. And then for Digger's Delight, God forbid, in August at St. Nicholas Park, God forbid you tricked me into thinking you were a digger and then you showed up with some nonsense. And someone said, oh, they needed to impress, like someone was worried about impressing, the Lord Finesses and the large pro in the crowd. And one of my friends was like, you should worry about impressing Christie because she's background listening and she'll come right over if she thinks you're not digging. And yeah, that's me co-signing them. And so if I look like I got tricked and someone isn't digging and they're playing typical stuff, it's just embarrassing.
Yeah, doesn't look
good for you. That was always hard. And that's one of the things about the park jams that got hard is like sometimes you had to like tell people you like that they are not sticking with the format. Then you find out they never even read an email you sent them about the format. And so those are people you love and that they're your friends. And it's so disappointing because they know better. Like why? But here's the thing, they worry that they're losing the crowd. And I'm like, don't worry about losing the crowd because Digger's Delight isn't for that crowd. Like the people who don't like it will leave.
Right.
And the people who like it will stay. Like we'll determine our crowd. And since there's no money at the door or anything to make, it doesn't matter. And we still pack the park, regardless. But yeah, it was the urge for a DJ to crowd please is really strong. And I almost want them to go the opposite way at Digger's Delight. So it's really hard. Like it's hard.
I'm sure. How did the True School NYC Summer Park Jam Series hosted by Grandmaster Kaz come together?
Well, thanks to 98 DMC US Finals, Eclipse from Fat Beats said, oh, you should have Lord Finesse host. And I had not met Lord Finesse. I was a fan of DITC, but I hadn't met him.
Right.
And we put him on. And so he showed up and I met him. And then he brought Diamond D with him, which I was beyond excited about. And then, because Stunts, Blunts, and Hip Hop was one of my all-time favorite albums. So I couldn't believe Diamond D was there. And then other people were like, I can't believe Lord Finesse is here. Like, it's like, everybody's so excited. And he liked the way I organized as well. Because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people will throw a host onto the stage with no hosting notes, no nothing. And that's just crazy, especially if you have sponsors. Like you can't just have a haphazard event.
Right.
So you have hosting notes and you make 2 and 3 copies in case the host like loses those. You keep pulling out hosting notes, whatever you need. So Lord Finesse, I think, liked how I organized things. And so the friends at Crotona Park are good friends with him. And they asked him if he would help them put some artists on to just do a little performance before their hip hop film series one year. I think that must have been 2003. They decided they were going to have a hip hop film series. And I think they showed Scratch and some other stuff. And Lord Finesse was like, I don't have the time or the patience. Here's Christie, meet Christie. And so, and I met them and friends at Crotona Park and Samantha Stone. And just the whole crew there was so awesome. Like they actually helped you make the jam. The park manager was getting like major sponsors. Like she was just on point. And so yeah, we threw little performances before, and then the next year we just got rid of the film series and just stacked it with more performances. And then it built from there. But it's a weird thing with the parks. I could talk about it more now since I'm not doing any park jams right now. But at any given time, you could. Okay, so Samantha Stone left and did whatever, she's making hats and cool stuff out of her farm in Vermont. And so then other people take her place, and they're not all, like some are, but not all of them are helpful. Some of them made you feel like they were doing everything to get you out of the park.
Right.
Like they rather have classical music or something different there. And so there was a lot of tears and frustration. Yeah, like we had one park manager that was undermining us with the police. Like, I don't know if he asked the police to ask us if we would do less days or end earlier, all kinds of weird stuff. It was bad. And so there were some really hard times to make it happen. I don't think people even know, yeah, because you can't really say it, but there's park managers that will work against you. And it's wild because it's their park to run, but it's the community's park. And so any community that doesn't have a park jam or can't even get permits has to wonder what the deal is with the parks and the police. And sometimes the police are more supportive than the parks. Like to this day, we were never able to throw a park jam on the Upper West Side where we actually lived. We couldn't do it. I don't know if it was too affluent. The farthest downtown we got was maybe 116th or 109th or something, But even then, as gentrification moved up, things started getting weird with other park managers. And one person who was cool one year is suddenly not having you the next year. And it's interesting because we would try to follow all the rules that we could. I don't think anybody fought with nutcracker salesmen as hard as we did. You know what I mean? And they would tell you not to approach them, like if you saw someone doing that. But then at the same time, if they knew you let people run around your park selling alcohol, then they're going to take your permit. So it's a catch-22. So we just were really, really, really strict all the time. But it's sad because we ended up fighting with a lot of people, over that. So yeah, it was weird. I have advisors within the park system that would tell me to keep fighting or doing whatever and, and try to help me. Yeah. But man, we just had it so hard. I don't even know, like, was it like too much extra work for them? Like they didn't even have to be there at the site.
Right.
We cleaned up. We did, we cleaned up all the garbage. We did everything. Like, especially for Crotona Park, we spent like at least an hour to 2 hours picking up all the empty nutcracker bottles and other garbage that was on the ground, despite the fact that we made a ton of announcements about, clean up after yourself, blah, blah, blah. And, and I think that's when we especially started realizing that it was not as fun as it used to be to throw these jams.
Right. Well, it's been said that Christie Z is the specialist you go to when you want your DJ battle or hip hop event done right. What are some ways you've seen them done wrong?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to avoid, but just dead air time, gear failures, bad sound system. There's a ton of things that can, like I said, a host with no notes, or a host that's not even paying attention. I've dealt with that before. I gave a host a note in New Jersey one time with everybody's like information, because I was like, well, maybe he doesn't know all these DJs, like they're not all like super popular.
Right.
And he just disregarded it. And then started telling inaccurate history on stage, even though,
oh boy,
he had been an MC, at a certain time. But that doesn't mean, just because you're, a legendary MC doesn't mean you know all your history, especially especially about another element.
Right.
And yeah, so that was it's weird. But yeah, oh, and then going to shows where people put too many opening acts on and they're pretty
I remember
all
those.
stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they drain your energy.
Mhm.
Recently we went to see Eric B and Rakim in Denver,
Mhm.
and the opening DJ was a young lady, and I don't know, I just don't know how old she was or what her experience was, but it was like she was playing K-Tel's greatest rap hits. And I started wondering, like, do they just not think Denver's down? Like, do they think that all the people in this audience that they're there to see Eric B and Rakim don't know more songs than this? And she seriously played the most popular song of each group, and it was upsetting. And so I didn't even want to stay. I left before the rest of the show because I was disgusted. She drained my energy. She had no right to be on the stage, and someone else could have been on it. I don't know. Sometimes I don't think a rap promoter is always concerned about how good an opening DJ is. Sometimes they just make someone who's touring with someone else DJ, or they get one for free.
I was gonna say someone that's not that expensive.
Oh, free DJs are sometimes the worst. Yeah,
yeah. I got really lucky when I saw Eric B and Rakim. Rod Digga came out right before.
Oh, yeah, that didn't happen here.
Yeah.
And you know, and then I feel that, like, I don't know if, like, when people come to Denver, do they know that Denver, knows music too, or do they just think it's weird. Like, I just feel like sometimes people are dumbing down a show to be here, when I wish they would have just let loose New York or LA style, or Bay Area style.
Right.
Weird.
The DMC DJ battles are the longest running, most prestigious DJ battles in the world. You've spoken on how lots of top battle DJs campaigned for DMC to allow Serato, Scratch Live, and other DBS programs over the years. We need to accommodate the present day battle DJs, because if they stop entering, we won't have any battles. Why do you think there are still those who challenge this progression in technology?
Oh, the purists?
You post about it a lot, so I'm what are you talking about?
Well, they didn't read the post of the other purists, so we have to go through it over and over again with the new purists.
Yeah.
And I understand what they're saying, but at the same time, like, the battles will be just dead. So I know firsthand what can be done and what can't be done and what works. So, and I remember Tony Prince, I don't know if he blind copied me or CC'd me on something. He was arguing with another branch manager in Europe. And that branch manager, who's no longer there, probably because of Serato being allowed, he didn't want any DVS to be allowed, digital vinyl systems. And Tony said, "Oh, I'm so surprised at you. I would have expected this from Christie, but not from you." And I was so happy. Because I was the last stronghold, and finally, like, enough DJs told me, like, yo, we want to keep battling, but we want to use everything we have access to, within reason, what I mean? And yeah, and then the year that we allowed DVS was the year that Chris Carnes from Denver won the US and then the world. ID entered the battles again, Precision entered, like, we had, like, Immortal, who's a US champion this year. Like, there were so many DJs in that 2011 battle, and you felt it was reviving, like, a lot of DJs weren't buying vinyl, I mean, or they were pressing it up, and it was very expensive to press up your own vinyl for the battle.
Right.
And then, God forbid, the people who pressed it up messed it up in some way, or you didn't calculate or produce the vinyl right. There's so many things that could go wrong. And so, like, if you're pressing up your own vinyl, then why not use digital vinyl system? The thing that I'm disappointed about was I thought after DVS would be allowed, that DJs would get more creative with, like, taking sound bites and disses from like a million different movies and stuff. And I'm just so disappointed sometimes when they don't. They just bury their head and they beat juggle or scratch. And there's so much extra you could do.
Mhm.
They just a lot of them don't. Like, yeah, some do. You know, I remember at the Worlds one year, I saw one guy use the legendary speech from Taken.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I always wanted. I was like, someone should use this, and then no one was till that guy. So yeah,
I feel like
I
a
think
lot of
that-
people use it now, though.
well, there's so many good movie sound bites. Like we
Mhm.
watch movies all the time. We're like, oh man, you know, we should make a battle break with
Mhm.
this, you know, these kind of things on them, like movie disses. And yeah,
That'd be a really good battle.
yeah. I mean, would be like a good battle tool, shall we say?
Mhm.
You know, but it's weird that DJs don't, you
Take
know,
advantage.
yeah. And now they have basically every record in the world at their disposal.
Right.
But a lot of times, and it is their choice, like to play whatever they want. But you'll find a lot of DJs are playing music that a lot of people don't recognize. And
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons people complain about the battles too, is it's song selection.
Right.
And any older hip hop head would want to hear, you know, things they recognize. And then you go to a battle and it's like the DJ might be into EDM or something different, and you're not going to get any of that from that DJ.
Mhm.
And I think that there's some music that has funk and soul, and I think there's other music that doesn't.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I think there's certain DJs that I've always liked over time that can pick the best music out of each genre and play it. And that's a special skill, but not too many people have that skill
Right.
to have an ear for that funk.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's a challenge because you can't control what the DJ uses for his or her set. All you could do is set the platform up and hope for the best.
Mhm.
But then you'll get the person who comes out and throws a fit. Oh, things were better back in the day and all vinyl, and then calls someone a push button DJ who actually did come up on vinyl. Like most of the
Mhm.
guys I work with already battled on vinyl all their lives.
Right.
You know, so I don't get, this is a weird thing too, woman wise, is like, if I came out like that, I would probably get jumped on,
Mhm.
you know what I mean, for being a girl troll and not knowing my history.
Mhm.
So us as women in this, like especially in my position, have to know the history up and over and around it, just so a guy can't check you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird.
Mhm.
But yeah, I study. I ask questions. I do a ton of different, I cross-examine. Like maybe I'll ask you a question, like Grand Wizard Theater, I'll ask him something 5 years. And then 5 years later, I'll ask him the same question again to see if the answer is the same,
Mhm.
you know. You just want to make sure, like,
Right.
but I'm really big on facts and history, and trying to be on point myself, because what's that going to look like? I'm running the biggest battles in the USA and I don't know my history.
Right. In your position. Right.
Yeah.
So speaking of, do you feel that you're respected for the work that you do in such a male-dominated space?
Yeah. It's within turntablism too. It's a really special genre, because a lot of the DJs are so open-minded.
Nice.
And so, I'll look like this, I'll have my hijab on and I'll be at a battle. And like say other people who don't know, like spectators will see all the DJs want to take a picture, like a group picture with me or something. And they're like, why do they want to take a picture with her? Like in one couple in Texas came up and they were like, oh, like I was a tourist or something. They were like, you like Mixed Master Mike? I'm like, yeah, this is my show. Like I'm not a foreign exchange student is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And I was, so you get misunderstood, but I think that also helps, like, people understand that Muslims are down and we do different things and we can still keep our integrity, whether we're in, a club where everybody's drinking or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
We did. So yeah, I've had some weird situations where people just don't know what you're doing there.
Yeah.
Or like one person said, there was something where I hate it that I have to do it, but sometimes you have to run across the stage and you don't want to do it. But if you have to walk through the crowd, that's even worse because you're never going to get to where you need to get on time.
Right.
So sometimes you have to make a run for it. And it was Cubert, I think in 2014. Someone said, why did they let that lady on stage? And I was like, I let myself on stage because I'm running this, you know? And it was so funny to me. And I think the person understood that, like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, you know? But then these other guys screenshot like me because I was really fast. It was like a scratch nerds thing. They screenshot like just the super quick clip of me and they thought that I was an apparition.
Oh God. I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah. I was so happy
like that you're some kind of alien.
Yeah. I was so happy. It was like so funny. But yeah, so what I was gonna say was the DJs are really open-minded, and there's a few transgender DJs in the scene.
Oh.
And even with them, they're just like so cool. Like if they can scratch, they're down.
Right.
And no one gets weird and no one's like, I can't believe you have that person here or anything. Like it's nice. You know, for the most part, there are some haters, but those are some people that haven't accomplished much and they're just angry
Right.
at anybody, whether it's the transgender DJ or DJ Pearly or whoever, you know what I mean? Like they're just angry.
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about Pearly.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about Pearly.
I did a woman place, yeah. How did it feel when Tools of War was honored at the first 2016 inaugural Element Awards, which recognized individuals who provide community service and spread hip hop culture?
Oh, that was awesome. I think that was the one in the Bay with Paul Ski, I think you're talking about. I think so. And yeah, it was amazing. You know, just and I love the Bay anyway. Like if I lived in any other place, it'd probably be the Bay or New Orleans, but preferably the Bay.
I say that a lot too. That's
yeah. It has such a cool vibe, and there's a lot of cool people there. And so yeah, so it was just good all the way around to be there. There was funny though. I was standing. Muslims sometimes one will stand guard while the other ones pray. You know, we're outdoors and you know, weird situation. You don't want someone tripping over your friends.
Right.
You know, they're praying outdoors between cars or something. Anyway, someone came up and just offered me a joint. Yeah, like it was funny. I was like, all right, I don't know what about my look is not warding this off, but it was pretty cute.
At least they're being friendly.
Yeah, I like the Bay. Oh, someone said, oh, they said, look, there's two pimps walking across the parking lot. And I was like, that's our ride. Like it was our friend Boss One and his friend, and they both had like the crazy flashiest suits and gaiters on. I was like, that's our rides. It was
awesome. Tell me a bit about Christie's These Cookies. It seems like everyone who attends your events can't get enough.
Yeah, I can't make enough. I just would make them and share them at a park jam on occasion. And then people were like, I would buy these. So then, you know, on occasion I would like bag some up and sell them, but I really didn't know how to, you know, what to charge or anything. But, you know, I'd have some bags to share with people. And it just ended up like, you know, DJs like DJ Cash Money or, you know, Bambaataa or whoever would just like take pictures of my cookies. And it became like a weird DJ status symbol, like you're holding up a $20 bag of cookies. And then, yeah, then Kaz would announce them on the mic at the park jams. And and it just went from there. Like I probably could sell, probably sell like $200 worth of cookies in a day. But it's just like, you know, in New York, you don't have a car, you're lugging your cookies somehow on the train or in an Uber. And you know, it's not easy, you know. So yeah, but yes, I just sent some chocolate chips to Jazzy Jeff the other day. So
they travel well?
Yeah. I texted him about something else. He goes, yeah, I know I should really care about that, but I'm wondering about them cookies. I'm like, oh,
nice.
They're on the way. So that I'm honored, you know what I mean? I'm honored that I have some cookie fans out there.
Indeed. How, just before I move on, how can people who have never had them before find out about getting them?
Oh man, they can try. They can try writing to me at toolsofwar@gmail.com. Like I really don't like bake them with any consistency, especially right now when I'm throwing battles and stuff.
Right. But maybe just to be like, hey, if I wanted a bag.
Yeah, like if you did, I would tell you, I would send you the cookie flavor list and send you the prices, and then you tell me what you want, and then you just like kind of wait for it to get all put together because you know different flavors of cookies. You know, you have to cook a whole batch, and then and I freeze a lot of cookies like as soon as they're done baking. You know, when they're cool, so they're like fresh as can be if I have to ship them. So yeah, like I mean, recently I just put together a bunch of cool flavors to send to my family members, so they were very happy. You know.
You could also try selling the dough, like making the dough, and then people had to bake them themselves.
I wish they would. They're like, oh, I'd rather have you bake them. But I would like the lazy side of me. If I could sell a $10 or $20 bag of dough and not have to spend the time at the oven, because it's like
it would probably travel better too.
Maybe, I don't know, but it's like 12 minutes or 15 minutes at the oven for every what 2 sheets, you know, and then you're switching up. And so it's just not something you can like do. I can't work on my computer and bake cookies at the same time.
Right.
That's unfortunate. But yeah, it's when I do have time, I do enjoy baking and cooking in general.
So you and Fable took last summer off from organizing your famed park jams, and then the pandemic canceled this year's jams and other live music events. As someone who both organizes and attends hip hop shows year round, how have the last 8 months affected your routine, your mindset, just in general?
Well, I'm actually like, we had no premonitions of a pandemic coming, but taking the year off, even though people were writing to us begging us, please bring back the jams. And, you know, I encourage people to try to throw the jams themselves too, but it's just hard because then they find out that they have to tell, you know, artists things they don't want to hear. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to be friends with everybody, you're going to have a hard time if you're an organizer or an event planner, because something weird is going to happen at some point that you're not going to like, you know, whatever it is. Like one time someone played Drake at our park jam in the Bronx and I was so upset. And he also didn't read my email about what the rules were in the format. And I still mad. I did not forget that. Like, it's just, oh, like, how could you do that? Like, that's you. And
without even needing to read the rules, you should know that shouldn't be played there.
He begged me to put him on. And then when I did, that's what he did. I don't even understand it. And then someone like, oh, well, his manager didn't explain to him. I'm like, no, you're responsible. Like, you shouldn't need a manager to help you negotiate a park jam.
Right.
No. So, I've been in Denver. So that's also interesting because this isn't a hip hop town at all. Right. So I didn't go to a lot of shows anyway, but I would, I have access to a bunch of different DJs and I have a better appreciation for DJs of different genres, the way they play it. And so like the best DJs will make you like a set or songs that you wouldn't normally like, just the way they mix them. So I've enjoyed that aspect of things, but you know, I miss the flavor of New York. I miss, you know, going out, you know, and hearing like hardcore digging or see, you know, like I threw a party here probably around this time last year. Lord Finesse came through and he brought OC and he rocked the house and we had a really cool party. And some people were like, oh man, this is the best thing I've been to. And people that were younger, like in their 20s, were like, wow, I never even experienced anything like this. Like we gave them a little taste of what was authentic and they felt it. And but that's so hard to recreate in a place where all the hip hop heads kind of like gave up and they're at home you know, with families and whatever. They gave up searching for it because it doesn't usually happen. So why keep looking? And so I was hoping to bring Large Pro out here next, but then the pandemic happened. It didn't, you know. Plus, it's hard to get venues and stuff.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Venues, if there's before this, how the venue situation was out there.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's people that want to be the middleman for you to get a venue, so somehow they have to be involved in your show, which sometimes I don't like that. Because I'm really picky about who DJs and who opens and all of that. Like who's in the circle really matters for my vibe and my happiness. Like, because I don't just throw events to make money. I actually don't. I probably lose money, but I throw events with a vision, and you know that person has to cooperate with the vision, shall we say? Mm-hmm. And so yeah, you just get a lot of weird vibes and things from people, different energies. And it's smaller here, like kind of, I don't know, not as small as Pittsburgh, but in its own way, it's definitely challenging. And then Denver missed a lot of hip hop acts because of gang violence. So there's a lot of, like when I said I'm bringing out Lord Finesse or Diamond D, some people didn't even know who I was talking about. And to me that was so hard to hear. They're like, nobody knows who that is. I'm like, what? So it's like, whatever, like if I lose money, I lose money, but I'm bringing people out here and I'm going to start somewhere to throw a party that I'd want to go to. And so then the next day we would have master classes with Lord Finesse or Diamond D. And right before the pandemic, we had master classes here at Mile High DJ Supply with oh man, it was Z-Trip and Qbert played at Cervantes one night. And so Qbert stays up all night. So he wanted to do like a 1 a.m. scratch session after the show. So we did that and then went to sleep, woke up early to get Z-Trip set up for his master class. And then I think Craze was like that night. So the next day Craze comes in to do a master class too. And so before the pandemic, we got to enjoy Crazy Trip and Qbert. Yeah. But it's hurting communities. Like they're normally where I'm sitting, there's a scratch session on Wednesday nights from 6 to 10. And everybody's here and they're taking turns scratching. And we haven't had that, you know, like in forever now, you know, and yeah, I don't know when I don't know when it's going to be safe again. And even when the people say it's safe, I won't necessarily believe it's still safe yet.
I think that's the worst part, is no one knows when it's going to be over.
Yeah. And somebody posted something funny about the vaccines. They're like, oh, you won't get the vaccine because you don't know what's in it, but you're still eating chicken McNuggets and hot dogs.
I've seen memes like that too.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm always nervous about shots and all of that too. You know, I don't want anything that gives me side effects.
Right.
But I do hope that something comes out that's safe for all of us, you know, with minimal side effects at least. Mm-hmm. God willing.
Here's hoping. So as CEO of DMC USA, how are you able to make the virtual 2020 DMC World DJ Championship so successful?
Well, I do the US. I don't get to do the worlds, but I do post on social media for DMC World, okay, you know, alongside of them posting. Mm-hmm. So I tried to keep it active when they're busy running their world battle. Right. But on the US side, I, you know, do my own little things. So we did the US finals, which was the classic 6-minute showcase style battle. And our US champion is DJ Immortal from Florida. And then, excuse me, they go to the world finals, which was all virtual. So nobody traveled to London. But so, but the interesting thing is then you take your sponsorship money and you redirect it. Like, so now the sponsorship money isn't focused on traveling. It's focusing on putting money into the person who's going to edit the next, like my next 2 battles. I'm having two battle categories that are just national level. Nobody goes to the worlds. Mm-hmm. And those will air at the end of December. One is the DMC USA Scratch Finals, and the other one is the DMC Battle for for US Supremacy, which is a head-to-head battle. So basically I got to pay someone whatever I would have paid in travel to put my battle together, to edit it and produce it.
Mhm.
So right now I'm in the midst of collecting people's footage. So for the head-to-head battle, judges picked the top 8 DJs out of 14. So those 14 got paired up. I mean, the 8 got paired up, and now they have to go back and forth with each other. And it's online, so they have to send me the footage, and then I upload it to my YouTube page, and then send them I send them their opponent's set so they can see it and respond. And that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And then I shut the link off. Like, I'm like, okay, you saw that long enough.
Yeah.
And then you can respond. So some of the guys have had some pretty creative ways of responding to that, to their opponent. So it's been really fun. And a lot of them said, like, wow, we really needed this during the pandemic. I was feeling depressed or whatever. So it's almost like, you're doing some sort of social work too, along with it. But it's really fun and exciting for me too. And I work with so many great DJs. Most of the time, everybody's so cool. So, and professional, like they're all sending their sets in on time and, doing cool stuff. So I can't wait to screen the footage at the end of, probably before January 1st, sometime that week of December 28th. I'll throw one battle one day and one battle the next day.
Nice.
But I have a lot of, I put sponsorship money towards paid showcases. I paid well for 1-minute scratch sets, which is interesting because I never really paid anybody to do something for 1 minute for me.
Right.
I've inadvertently paid someone $500 for 3 minutes. That was only because we ran out of time though at the battle. It was a good 3 minutes. What can you say?
Yeah.
But so yeah, so it's just an interesting time, but it is really exciting. And I think when they air, it's going to be so much fun. Scratchy Seal is hosting my scratch finals.
Nice.
So yeah, I don't know if Puppets usually host the DJ battles, but that'll be fun.
Yeah,
And
well.
then my friend Fat Fingers is going to host the Supremacy. And so he's super over the top hype. So that'll be fun. Yeah. So it's kind of like experimenting. Like I've seen everybody else's way they live stream or organize their battles, and I watch all the battles that go online. So, I took notes, what I like, what I don't like. And, I'm going to try to do some fun stuff from here. Yeah.
Do you feel you've had more submissions this year for your battles just because of how accessible they are with it being online?
No, I think for the US finals, and it was like, I think I got 50 DJs entered, and I was expecting like 200, 250, like, because it was more accessible.
Right.
But then people were like, oh, I'm not feeling it. It's not live. I'm better live DJ, blah, blah, blah. Then the US finals came out, and then some really great DJs that didn't battle were like, I could have beat like at least some of these people in the top 12. I could have beat them. I'm like, but you didn't enter. So like sometimes when you win, it's, it's a blessing that the better DJs aren't entering. And then some, like, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird how it goes. Like I don't think it's luck, but it's interesting how a person can get an advantage based on who's not battling or based on who couldn't get their footage together in time. There's so many variables on your success.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, yeah. Hold on a second.
How the pandemic has really leveled the playing field.
Yeah. So I'm really happy. I think Immortal is a great US champion, and he's been battling since '99. Like his time's been coming. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of great DJs that don't make US champion that are amazing too. So, but I was hoping a lot of DJs would have entered this year. And so when Supremacy came around, they were more on the ball, like, okay, I'm gonna at least do that, or I'm gonna at least do the scratch battle.
Mhm.
But so many people could take advantage of that DMC world. It's crazy not to, because it's basically like people are going to the DMC world page to watch battle videos.
Right.
Half the time the DJs are posting on Facebook begging people to watch their video,
Mhm.
hoping for a hit or a like. This is a site where people are actually going to watch them, and it's for free. You could post your set, and for whatever reason, you've overthought it, and now you won't battle. But then, so a lot of really good DJs overthink it, and then there's a lot of amateur DJs that don't overthink it and just enter, and they advance.
Mhm.
Because these other guys are busy wondering if they're good enough to battle or if they have material. So it's really fascinating to watch. You know, who bows out and who steps up.
Right. Interesting. Christie, going back to the Tools of War newsletter, which was known for promoting events, it also included listings for protests and community meetings dealing with issues such as police brutality, women's rights, and Muslim rights. How do you feel the hip hop community has done with addressing these issues in 2020 or in the past?
I don't know. I feel like with younger generations, they don't have that, like Zulu meetings or whatever. So it's different. It's really different. I think that a lot of the younger generation in cultural hip hop might be more woke.
Mhm.
But then sometimes you'll see someone who you thought was in cultural hip hop, like talking like a supremacist or a racist, and you're just like, how did you get into hip hop and miss the whole message? You know, so the younger generations who missed the whole time of Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, Brand Nubian, Paris, the Lynch Mob, which is my favorite. They missed all of it. They missed the time when militant rap was on the radio and it was conscious and it was hardcore. And so they just don't know it, and there's no call to action. So it's like a whole different generation in a gap, I gotta say. So I don't even know. And then we were like, was like Cutting Candy, Rosa Clemente, all kinds of people. We were on Reach Hip Hop, which was protesting a Hot 97 after that stupid tsunami song. And that was interesting because then I learned so much about so-called commercial rap radio. And they went in to have a meeting with the programmers, and this guy, he didn't know anybody in the room, including Bambaataa. He didn't recognize anybody. And he was like, look, I just came here from a country music station. I'm here to make this station money. Like, that was it. And I guess, you know, by any means necessary, he was going to make them money, even if it was like in really bad ways, of, you know, ways that weren't positive for the community. And we found out that there was rules about playing profanity during certain times of the day. Like, there was all kinds of things that it seemed like Hot 97 was violating, you know. And someone pointed out that they replaced actual news, like, you know, there might be NPR News or someone, you know, like some sort of news brief to keep people up to date with what's going on in the world. But they replaced that on Hot 97 with celebrity gossip.
Oh, Lord.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it was weird. And yeah, it was like the dumbing down of a whole generation of would-be hip hop heads. And I would say rap heads, because if you don't know the whole culture, is it hip hop then? Or is it just rap? And then there's the commercial rap, and then there's underground, and, you know. So the commercial rap side of it and the industry rap side of it is just a hot mess, and something that I stay away from.
Right.
You know, I can't mess with that. And I'm completely not interested in anything from that industry, including the snakiness and the backstabbing and the underhandedness and all that stuff, you know.
I mean, you don't have to with your job, hopefully.
No, I mean, you know, you might encounter people like that, but eventually you just keep them out of your way. Like, you just don't have to work with them when you're your own boss, you know, like,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
But then you see like DJ Ease was what's her name? Is it Young MA? Or is
Oh,
it Young Ma? Saying
no, I think it's Young. I've always wondered that too. I'm pretty sure it's Young Ma, but yeah.
But yeah, she has DJ Ease as her DJ. So it's nice that, you know, she picked a really, really talented DJ who can battle and tour with her. You know what I mean? And
Right.
every song, like DJ Dummy is with Common, DJ Lord is with Public Enemy now. Like there's so many great battle DJs that are with artists. So that's refreshing. But
Yeah. Well, Christy, I appreciate you so much for taking the time. Is there anything else that you want to add or promote?
Let me think. There was something I thought of and then it just escaped my mind. All I would say is people should promote what they like in their favorite artists and share so the community can take part in it. Like just because no one's paying you or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like if there's an event that finally happens, share it. Don't just go and then tell your friends about it the next day. You know, like let's make it more of a community. Let's look out. Let's, you know, let's try to throw the shows that we like. Let's not take money to put opening acts on that are garbage. Like let's, if we do open up again, let's have quality shows, you know, like even if they don't make a ton of money, figure out how to make money off of a quality, authentic artist versus, you know, and no DJ should be paying to open up for someone. Like that's crazy.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things along those lines, but I just hope when things do open up, people will be kinder and more thoughtful and more supportive and just all the beautiful things that I know some people in hip hop to be, you know?
Yeah, well, hopefully, like they're not really making much money now, so hopefully even just a little bit more would be enticing.
Yeah, but yeah, support, like share who you support. Like it's an interesting thing. Like now, people will share someone who failed before they'll share someone who won.
Right.
It's a fascinating thing where sometimes someone who purposely failed will get more attention than the person who won.
Mm-hmm.
And that this is something backwards and upside down about that.
I agree.
Yeah, so I hope that people actually do start sharing what they do like and not what's bad, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the trolls win.
No. Words of advice.
Yeah.
Well, Christy, I hope you have a fantastic evening and hopefully I'll see you in New York sometime soon.
God willing. Thank you for interviewing me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.
Thanks.